Johnny Manziel, Justin Gilbert, Trent Richardson, Brandon Weeden. These are the names that haunt Browns fans across America. But what if I told you that there was a lesser known name that might be even worse? I'm talking about Leon McFadden. Leon McFadden was taken in the third round of the 2013 NFL Draft with the 68th overall pick. As per usual, in the early 2010s, Cleveland had already blown their first round pick by reaching for Barkevious Mingo at 6th overall. To be fair, the only real hit in the top 10 was Lane Johnson at 4. But there was a hotbed of unrealized talent that would slide into the late first round and throughout the second and third round. DeAndre Hopkins went 27th overall, and the second round would see players like Zach Ertz, Darius Slay, Jamie Collins, and Le'Veon Bell be picked up for less than what they would ultimately be worth. Round 3 is where things got interesting though. There was still a big name that was available who was sliding down the draft, and who just 2 seasons earlier was named the best defensive player in college football and was a Heisman finalist. I'm talking about the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. In 2011, Mathieu had 77 total tackles, 1.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 2 which were returned for a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. On special teams, Mathieu had 26 punt returns for 420 yards with 2 returned for a touchdown. And this led him to being awarded the Chuck Bednarik Award as the year's best defensive player in college football. In 2012, there were a series of off-field issues that caused him to have this slide out of the first round. He failed multiple drug tests and was arrested for possession of marijuana, which ultimately led him to being dismissed by the team. Regardless, he announced that he would be entering the 2013 NFL Draft, and with his outstanding performance in 2011, most thought that he would be worth the risk to take in the late first round or the second round. That was, of course, until the Combine. The Honey Badger was seriously underwhelming. He ran a 4.5 in the 40 and only benched 225 4 times. This wouldn't have been as big of an issue if he had a prototypical NFL defensive back body, but Mathieu only measured in at 5'8 3/4 and 186 pounds. Now teams weren't only gambling if he'd be able to stay clean and focused, but also if he'd be big enough and fast enough to play in the pros. So back to the third round. Tyrann Mathieu has been sliding and is still available, and the Browns need another good defensive back to work with Joe Hayden and TJ Ward in the secondary. By all accounts, it should have been the easiest third round pick in Cleveland sports history. But what did the Browns do? They got cute and went with their gut instead of just simply taking the best player available. Leon McFadden, San Diego State. It's not like Leon McFadden had better measurables than the Honey Badger either. He was 5'10", 190 pounds, and ran a slower 40 at 4.54. Comparing the two players on the NFL scouting combine profiles shows clearly that Mathieu was the better prospect. Not only did he have more upside, he played in the toughest conference in college football and was named the best defensive player in college football. The very next pick, Arizona walked away with one of the biggest draft steals in that era of the NFL. And just like that, Tyrann Mathieu was off the board. And what has happened to both players since Leon McFadden was taken 1 pick ahead of Tyrann Mathieu? Well, Leon McFadden started 2 games throughout his entire NFL career and was out of the league by 2016. Tyrann Mathieu, he was named to the All-Rookie team. He's had 3 first-team All-Pro seasons, a second-team All-Pro season. He's been to 3 Pro Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl, and he was named to the 2010s All-Decade team. The Browns GM at the time, Michael Lombardi, was understandably fired after that horrific draft, and the Browns would go on to hire their 3rd GM in 3 seasons. In 2014, it seems like Ray Farmer's draft strategy was based off of Michael Lombardi's failures. While Lombardi couldn't look past off-field issues, Ray Farmer took them into no account whatsoever. And this would create one of Cleveland's worst first rounds in history, as they drafted Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel, both whose scouting profiles were full of red flags. Previously, they had just gotten by on athleticism.
Did you not need great technique at Oklahoma State?
Not a lot of the time, no.
Drafting players is an imperfect science. However, very often it's made out to be more difficult and complex than it really is. Tyrann Mathieu was head and shoulders above the talent of most of the defensive players in the 2013 draft. And although his off-field concerns were legitimate, it doesn't excuse the fact that he dropped to the 3rd round. Cleveland had the chance to get one of the best players of the past decade in their secondary. But in the extremely dark days of the early to mid 2010s on Lake Erie, what else could you expect? I feel bad for players like Leon McFadden who are thrust into this never never-ending comparison between them and the players who were taken right after. But that's just the nature of the game, and I'm sure there'll be another situation just like that in next week's draft. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment the player that your team took who you couldn't stand and who you wish they took instead. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.